Hello and welcome to another episode of WSI. My name's James, and my next guest, I could reel off the dozens and dozens of amateur and professional accomplishments this man has achieved, but I will give you a couple that you may not know. And the first one is he was NWA champion for a combined 1,559 days, meaning he held the belt for the fifth longest amount of time in the 73-year history of that illustrious title. And the second and most important fact about my next guest is his mustache has made more women pregnant just by looking at it in history, apart from Don the Predator Fries. It is, of course, Dan the Beast Severn. How are you doing?
I'm doing good there. When I remember when something I saw that I posted, it was the most comical thing I'd ever seen before, because again, I don't remember who said that to me, but they were saying that Josh Barnett. I think it was Josh Barnett who made that little posting thing that however many thousands of women just became pregnant just by the description of this picture. So pretty funny.
Yeah, I'll admit I did plagiarize that intro from that picture as well.
Oh, but that's all right. It's a good, as long as you steal it from some of the best lines. That's all that matters right
exactly.
Now. Make them and own them yourself.
It's a Jim Cornette line, but if you borrow from one, it's stealing. If you borrow from many, it's research. So I steal from many and call it research.
There you go.
Righto. So I'm going to, I've sort of teed you up with what's going on. I'm going to ask you mostly pro wrestling questions. The occasional MMA question might sneak in there as well, because I'm actually a bigger MMA fan than I am a wrestling fan. I tell people all the time I've not watched wrestling in 15 years. That's why I love talking to guys from the 90s, because I'm right there with you. But the first question I've got to ask you is, why weren't you on the UFC episode of Friends?
I don't know. I've been asked that question many times before, but it was brought to my attention after the fact, and people asked me, why weren't you on there? I'm thinking, I wasn't asked. So, but you got to also understand that the UFC has changed hands. Has there been 4 different ownerships now? So it's each one. I mean, I think prior to the big conglomerate that it is now, I think that there were a number of favorites that the UFC kind of worked with at the time. So it was probably whoever was flavor of the month or flavor of the week or whatever got in. That's all.
And it was Tank Abbott who was flavour of the month on that one. It happened to be, and also Bruce Buffer, who he was barely really commentating at that time, but he got the nod over the unfortunately named Ron Jeremy, who was also announcing at that time.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember. Yeah, because at the first I thought about Ron Jeremy, the porn star. Thinking, well, I think that's someone total different industry here now.
Yeah. I know there was Bruce Buffer originally. Not originally. I know there was a couple of other guys. No, Ron Jeremy. He might have been the guy who wore the wig. I can't remember. But I'll leave Ron Jeremy and his currently incarcerated namesake alone, and I'll move on to my next question. And it's going to be the only it's going to be the only modern question I'm going to ask you, and it's. I never really give my opinions on this. I just throw a question asking you, but I'll sort of throw mine out here for this one. CM Punk recently returned to professional wrestling. The last time he was really in any sort of performing arena was UFC in 2018, where he put on one of the worst performances against the second worst UFC fighter, at least of the modern era. How can one sort of take CM Punk seriously after that performance, or is that just pro wrestling? And I mean, where's your stance on putting CM Punk right in the main event when that's your lasting memory?
When it comes to professional wrestling, if you don't have it yourself, there are other people that will be working on your behalf to come up with creative storylines. To where, I mean, literally, they could actually orchestrate a match where you might get hurt, or a loser leaves town, or something along those type of stipulations, and you lose, and poof, you're gone. And maybe 6 months later, you reemerge, and you're wearing an entirely new costume. You might have a new hairdo. You might have a beard, a mustache. You might have a Mongolian pigtail. I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that they could do hair wise, costume wise, but then story wise, because there's singles matches and then there's tag team matches. So there's so many different ways that you can orchestrate a career that I always say that when it comes to professional wrestling, anything is possible in the crazy world of professional wrestling. If Vince McMahon wanted a midget with a feather to beat a giant just by tickling him a little bit, he starts to laugh, and he tickles him a little more, the giant falls on his back, and then the midget pins him. That you heard it here first, folks. if you see that happen now in professional wrestling. So anything is possible.
So would you suggest that pro wrestling fans are far more forgiving than MMA for past losses?
Oh, hugely, yes. I mean, it's I'd say again, it kind of depends on your personality, though. Too, a lot of these professional wrestlers, they do interact with the fans in different ways, whether they go to these different fan fests or even how they come out to the arena. What do they do after their matches as they leave the ring? You get different opportunities to display your character and your interaction. Because I mean, I've worked with a lot of other professional wrestlers in the past and tried to help them with their character. And I go, everything before you ever step through that curtain, what does that music say about you? The moment that you step through that curtain, what is that uniform that you're wearing? You know, your costume, the trunks, the singlet. I mean, what does it say about you? How are you conducting yourself? How are you carrying yourself to the ring? I mean, literally, by the time before you ever get into that ring itself, people should almost have a good understanding. I don't like this guy, or yeah, I want to get behind this guy, or gal. So
I'm going to move on then, and I'm going to ask you, because I didn't sort of put two and two together that you may have known this guy quite well, and he passed away quite recently. Have you got any good Danny Hodge stories?
Oh my gosh, do I have? Yes, I do have Danny Hodge stories. I mean, again, a tragic loss to lose it. But I mean, how old was Danny Hodge?
I imagine 80s. I could search that for you while you're.
I would imagine probably easily in his 80 type of time frame. I met Danny Hodge on several different occasions. One of the very first times I met Danny Hodge was probably back in 1975 or 76. It happened to be at the NCAA tournament. I was going to be at. I had my very first knee injury where I had to have knee surgery, and I was having I'll say a Cinderella freshman year as a true freshman at Arizona State University, to where, James, I was 34-0, 24 pins. I pinned 5 out of the 6 NCAA place finishers that year. I mean, I was on fire. I mean, literally every other week I was being taken down to a press conference. They're shoving microphones in my face. They're like going, how are you able to do this? How are you able to do that? I'm like, speaking to people was the last thing I wanted to do. My wrestling career came out of the fact that I had 7 other brothers and sisters. I'm second on the totem pole. Asking mom or dad for money to go to college never entered my mind, because there is no money to ask for. They're taking care of the feeding and clothing, total of 8 kids. So that was my route. Now, again, see, I already digressed from, you asked me a question about Danny Hodge. I mean, that's where people got to understand. I mean, Danny Hodge, an incredible Oklahoma. I mean, I mean, he's a piece of history. He was a boxer. Right? He was an NCAA champion in both wrestling and boxing in his career. Very nice, gentleman, soft spoken, but he had a powerful grip because he had actually like a second set of tendons in both of his hands. I mean, he could squash apples. He could break pairs of players. Um, I mean, every time that I would meet him, he basically just reach up there. We go to shake hands. He just give me that nice little squeeze. I'm like going, "Don't drop me to my knees, there, Daddy. Don't drop me to my knees. Don't embarrass me out here." So we had a great rapport, and like I said, I've had an opportunity to meet Danny on several different occasions over the span of years, and it's always great seeing him. So again, it's just a great loss to see someone like himself, and there really should be. There should be a movie kind of portraying someone like him. I mean, I noticed a lot more of these documentaries that are taking place. There really should be one that should be done onto him because he's done a lot of wonderful things and has helped a lot of wonderful people.
He was 88 as well, so as we say,
Okay,
a good age,
well,
not a bad age.
That's good age, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'll tell you what, right? So this is going to be a bit of a longer question. I have to tee it up a bit. So one of the early UFCs, because I rewatched the UFCs maybe a couple of years ago, and one thing that really stuck out to me was Jeff Blatnick, who Olympic heavyweight wrestler, won gold. And he was a commentator for a lot of the early UFCs, and he deserves a lot of credit for a lot of other things in UFC as well, for getting them over a lot of hurdles. And he, on commentary during one of the pay-per-views, talked about professional wrestling, but not in like sneery, snidey terms, saying it's mentioning it as a very legitimate, good avenue, a good avenue for amateur wrestlers to go into, and they get into professional wrestling and make a go of it if they're lucky. So, with your breadth of amateur wrestling, what was your opinion of professional wrestling maybe in the 80s, and what spurred you on to give it a go? UWFI, I believe, was your first major promotion.
Yeah. Well, again, first talking about Jeff Blatnick. Jeff Blatnick was a amateur wrestler. I believe he was hailed from New York. Was part of the New York Athletic Club. A Greco-Roman wrestler. Just for your viewers, I mean, there are two international styles of wrestling. There's freestyle and there's Greco-Roman. Freestyle is very similar to what we do in our high schools, our junior high, and on a collegiate basis. But there are some rule differences, some different types of scoring, quicker scoring points, and things of that nature. They do allow more types of wicked type of throws that would not be allowed in the folk style realm of things. And Jeff Blatnick was basically was an Olympic champion, was Olympian, and basically we were both at the Olympic training camp at the exact same time, and we were workout partners with each other. So, and he actually helped the UFC get through a lot of hurdles and helped turn it from the no holds barred into, I think he helped them coin that phrase, mixed martial arts, MMA. So very instrumental individual. I think I actually was with him somewhere back east about a month before he had a heart attack. As because we were just sitting out because it was way early in the day. Show was going to be like that evening. The arena's got people move around, hustling, bustling, doing this and that. And he and I were just sitting in just a couple empty seats back there. He goes, "Dad, did you ever imagine way back when, we were at the Olympic Training Center, we're working out and stuff like that for the upcoming games, the Olympic Games that were going to be taking place, that we'd be here like today." And it's like going, just reminiscing about life, So it was kind of strange just to be with him. And then basically about a month or so later, he's gone. So I don't even know if I answered your original question there.
No.
Oh, okay.
I shall re-ask it. I was quite surprised that Jeff Blatnick was actually so complimentary to professional wrestling, and how only almost the luckiest of the lucky of the amateur wrestlers get into pros and make a good wage, because there wasn't really much in the way after amateur wrestling to make a career unless it was a coach or a commentator, really.
Yeah, basically you hit the nail on the head. If you're not coaching it, and then literally that's the path I was looking for. I mean, I love the sport of wrestling, to where I kept thinking that when I was my degree at Arizona State was in construction engineering originally, And then I went from college engineering to college of technology, to where I basically left with a teaching degree so that I could be a teacher, a coach, whether that be at a local high school, junior high, or even at a collegiate type level. So that's actually what I was looking for myself. And like I said, lo and behold, by 1992? Yeah, by the 1992 Olympics, a new rule came down at that point in time that allowed athletes to be both amateur and professional simultaneously. And that's when the United States had their dream team for basketball. So now they have all their NBA players that are multi-millionaires, and now they're playing in the sport. So it just changed a great deal the sport. So now I can have my cake and eat it too. I had been approached by some professional companies in the mid '80s, but I didn't want to turn pro at that point in time because my amateur career meant too much. But then I said that as of '92, I jumped into it, and then by 1994, I jumped into my second profession, and that was with the Ultimate Fighting Championships, the cage fighting stuff. So a lot of people always think that I was a cage fighter first, and then jumped into professional because they saw me working with the WWF, which that is a correct timetable, but they just didn't realize I was on the smaller independent circuit, not as well viewed as of 1992. So again, to get back to the actual original question, it doesn't surprise me that more professional wrestlers have not gone into it. Matter of fact, the Olympic Games just finished up for wrestling just a couple weeks back, and you've got the one heavyweight,
Gable Stevenson. Yeah.
Yes, he just signed with WWF. So I mean, I just saw that in the media, stuff like that, because I mean, I knew about it that last couple of years. I just wasn't following it as closely because just being busy. But when he went into stuff like that, he's got a good sense of humor about himself, a good character. So I could see someone like him easily going into it. And there's been many amateur wrestlers that have crossed the line and gone into it. It's viewed differently now had been viewed then. Like when I was in amateur wrestling, I had a lot of my buddies like going, dude, you're not going to go into professional wrestling. He goes, it was almost looking like I was going to be bringing shame. I said, it all depends on how you conduct yourself. I don't foresee myself, wearing any goofy outfits or having to do any kind of real goofy type of characters, but
I can't see you being the second coming of Doink the Clown or anything like that.
Well, again, if I always tell people that if you were allowed to put on a mask and a complete bodysuit, stuff like that, you might be surprised what people would be willing to do, knowing that by day I could be out in the public because people are going to see my face. But once I go in and underneath this mask and body design, I could be someone totally different.
Mm-hmm.
James, I did exactly that early on in my professional wrestling career.
I would wrestle. Were you a masked wrestler?
I wrestled twice. I would wrestle twice on the same card. In the first half of the card, I would go out there with a hood, a bodysuit, gloves, foot garments. You did not see one speck of my body. And I had a costume where I looked like I weighed well over 300 pounds. And I used to go out there as a character known as Tubby Tanaka. Again, totally different from Dan Severn because Tubby Tanaka was a heel, a bad guy. And relish, I mean, what I had so much fun in is I could make anybody who I wrestled a star because I would go out there and I would berate the Americans because I would tell them how lazy and illiterate that they were. Now, again, was that a fabrication or am I telling them the truth? Am I rubbing their face in the truth? And it was so easy to get my opponent to get the USA chants behind him and stuff like that, to get the rallies. And I can simply say this there, James, that Tubby Tanaka never won a single match. And the people always loved it every time that I lost.
Did you put an accent on, like an Irish? Because
no,
USA down.
It was basically I was portrayed to be like a sumo, Japanese sumo. So I had a ponytail on there, the whole 9 yards, because I'm trying to do this shtick, and I actually had a Japanese flag and the whole 9 yards. So and again, I would just be up there like saying, "How stupid you Americanos are." I mean, just be going into broken up English and stuff of that nature, and I just had a lot of fun with that character. And I must have did a pretty good job, because there was a couple times that I would be down at a couple of the southern states. And as I'm leaving the locker room, there were some of the fans were waiting by the locker room area. And as I'm walking up to, "Hey, Dad, great match here tonight." And I'm like, "Well, thanks, guys." I might go, who you guys waiting for? And they're like, "We're waiting for Tubby Tanaka. We're going to kick his ass."
Well done. Very well done. Well done. I'm going to ask you this next one. And I'm probably going to cut this next couple of seconds because I've just messed up my train of thought because I'm skipping a couple of questions on. I do it all the time. I wear glasses normally as well. I refuse to wear them on camera. I'm going to...
we've got a vanity issue taking place here.
Of course. I'm highly vain. Terribly vain.
Yeah, but you could be like, who's the guy there that
Harry
wears
Potter.
all the really...
Everyone keeps calling me Harry Potter.
You can have these gaudy glasses, whether they be Harry Potter or, but then I'm trying to think of the musician that wears really flamboyant glasses.
Elton John.
Yes, there you go. You could be doing that John glasses.
Yeah, that's exactly who I want to be compared to.
Only for eyewear. Only for eyewear. Okay, only for eyewear.
Right, I'll give you. I'll probably leave that in. Actually, I'll give you this next one then. So, in 1995, you've been in the UWFI. You've been several different places, done the independents and everything. But your first sort of like real claim to fame in wrestling is you become NWA champion in 1995. How did the negotiations go, and what were you sort of promised as far as how long you'd have the belt, and what were they trying to accomplish with giving you the belt and booking you and such?
You mean when the NWA approached me about putting the strap on me?
Yes.
Well, when that first happened, the NWA at that point in time was almost non-existent. I believe there were only 3 promoters that were left in existence for the NWA. It was a gentleman from out east, I think Dennis Carluzzo, came up with the crazy idea of putting the strap on me. And, I'm sorry, no, okay.
It may have been Howard Brody.
Okay, no. It was Dennis Carluzzo come up with this idea. But, okay, Howard Brody was in the mix. But the fact is, they had to approach Jim Cornette, because the belt holder at that time was Chris Candido. And Jim Cornette had his own promotion known as Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And you think about that, to be approached. I mean, Jim had never met me at that point in time. I don't even know if Jim even knew who I was at that point in time, because I was still so, I'll say, fresh, green in my professional wrestling career. I was going over to Japan practically every other month doing a UWFI match there, but that's a very, very strong style of professional wrestling that was not taking place inside the United States at all. Or it could be thrown, I should say, or it should be thrown back as a days gone by. There was that same style early on in professional wrestling. Again, when you start looking at probably 1960s and later back, it was a much more strong style shown. Professional wrestling at that point in time, literally the announcer would be in the ring and he'd be saying, "Any man, woman, or child that can last 5 minutes with the champ gets $10,000. That was actually something legit that promoter was promoting, knowing that whatever local would climb to the ropes, the champ was going to put down hard and fast. So now when Billy Bob goes back up into the crowd, bloody, battered, bruised, the people think, well, it's got to be real. Look what happened to one of our own. I mean, that was what the premise was done with professionals way back then. And then they would go on with their agenda of the orchestrated matches and predetermined outcomes. I mean, but I always tell people, don't say that it's fake. There might be a predetermined outcome, but to be picked up physically and be body slammed, hit with clotheslines and chops, stuff like this. Professional wrestlers are some of the most incredible athletes, doing some of the most incredible athletic maneuvers without the aid of a safety net. Now, again, I digressed over all these other different avenues. Getting back to your original question, Jim Cornette was, just to allow someone they had never met to come to his organization, to take the strap off of his current champion. What a guy he was. What a guy. I mean, I can't say enough praise for him. I mean, literally, if you've ever had the chance to speak to Jim Cornette, as he starts talking, he gets more and more excited about the conversation of professional wrestling. And you literally, you can almost see the child that fell in love with professional wrestling decades ago. You could see it emerging because he still has that same type of excitement. He wants to try to make sense out of professional wrestling, and Jim Cornette has helped me out a couple different times in my career. And when I was working for the WWF at the time, he was always so frustrated with the creative team because he just said, Steven, say, Dad, he goes, you're the best thing to ever hit professional wrestling. You're a professional wrestler who actually can wrestle. You don't need the cut promos. You're not going to go out there, flex. You're not going to cut crazy. I said, you're just going to go out there. You're going to dismantle people. So literally, I was kind of like a Bill Goldberg 20 years before Bill Goldberg ever came on the scene is really what I was. It just, just for wrestling. Jim Cornette could be my mouthpiece. I didn't have to talk. I mean, I had the best talker in the world. So,
did you ever experience his temper at any point? Not towards you, but I've asked this quite a few times, and he just goes just over the smallest thing, and then calms down again.
No. I mean, I've seen that temper as it has been shown towards individuals he didn't care for. Like, for example, he didn't like Vince Russo at all. So if you bring up a name like that, I mean, he would just, I mean, that would bring him up. Where I mean, it's I've never really seen the wrath, but I just know that when he brings that up, he's very, I don't know, just so involved with that industry. He's one of these people that wants to try to protect this industry and help it along in the right way. I mean, when people look at it for being exposed, I mean, the real people that really exposed it was Vince McMahon himself. Exposed the industry because up to that point in time, every state that he was running his shows in, he had to be regulated by the Boxing Athletic Commission, and he was trying to simply, he basically told him, he goes, these are all predetermined outcomes. These are just phenomenal athletes that are able to orchestrate this play, action. And he goes, I can show you a list of all the matches tonight and how they're going to finish, and that's how it's going to go. So literally, he's the person who actually exposed it originally, just so they didn't have to pay he probably saved his company millions of dollars on an annual basis because of all the athletic commission what it costs them, fees. What it costs them to get all their fees, the nature. So
I mean, Vince McMahon wasn't even the first to do that. In the 30s, a guy called Jack Pfeffer gave interviews to like the New York Post or something like that, and it was meant to be a huge expose on the business, and it didn't affect ticket sales at all because I think for the most part people knew and they didn't care.
Yeah, again, it's like going to the movies. You want to be entertained. I mean, it's going to movies, going to play, going to watch professional wrestling. It's all the same thing.
Exactly. When you wrestled Chris Candido, and also you're in the same company, and forgive me, everyone watching, I've got to ask this again. Everyone always seems to have a nightmare story about Tammy Sitch, Sonny, who was Chris Candido's girlfriend. Do you have one?
I don't have any bad stories to tell. I mean, she was Chris's girlfriend at the time. I don't know if they were married. I think they were just boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. But it just I mean I've seen different types of things that have emerged on the via the internet, and I'll just say I think she kind of fall upon some hard times, and looking at whatever ways that she could make some income. So
Yes, unfortunately. I'll move on from that. And someone wrote to me, and this was before I knew I was speaking to you, but I actually copied it, and it was really interesting to me. So I'll read the comment. So this was on a YouTube comment on something else from a few weeks ago. Someone wrote, claiming that they did a couple of shows in Las Vegas that Bam Bam Bigelow was on, and he was quite a bully. The promoter booked him with the Beast Dan Severn. That cooled his jets real quick. Do you have any recollection of that?
No, I did have a match with Bam Bam Bigelow. I'm trying to think here right now. I mean, there's a couple of people I've had some matches with that were just. I kept thinking, how are we going to pull this match off? Because half the time I'm walking out there thinking, I'm not sure how this is going to go. We have a general idea of what the outcome is going to be, but what the outcome is going to be, and from the whatever amount of time you put out there, it's hard to say what all could happen, because the thing I like about professional wrestling the most is when things go wrong, how are you able to work from that? Because rings do fall apart. Mm-hmm. People do get hurt. Things go wrong. Especially when you involve tables, ladders, and chairs, that kind of stuff. Yeah, lots of stuff kind of goes wrong there.
Do you remember a specific instance where something seemed to go completely wrong and you thought, how are we going to right this ship? Do you remember the time in a match where I went, oh my God, this couldn't go worse, and then you've got to sort of fumble your way through to the end?
No, I mean, no. I've actually been into a couple of different matches like that, where it's like going, I have no idea where this is going, because we end up going out of the ring. Well, here. If you want me to go to a story time, I'll tell you a great story here right now.
Please
do. For example, right, Ogawa. Okay, I can't think. Ogawa was the Japanese NWA champion at one point in time. For a while, I had to drop the strap to Ogawa because they wanted the Japanese to run with the championship for a while. They were adding up a lot of money, things of that nature, and this match was going to take place in Texas, and Ogawa can't speak English. I only know half a dozen different Japanese words there, so we had an interpreter, and the promoter, Ogawa, myself, and the interpreter. And literally, Ogawa basically pitched the idea that this was going to be about a 2-minute match. We're going to just tie up, get somehow a takedown. There's going to be some type of a leg lock, and we're going to roll out of bounds, out of the ring, onto the floor. But we're still going to have the ankle locks on each other, and it's going to be a double count out. And basically, I make a long story short. I simply agreed. I agreed with the with Ogawa basically through his interpreter, and so they left. Now the promoter looks at me. He goes, Dan. He goes, this is the main event. He goes, this is going to look like shit. And I go, yes. I go, how long is the match slated for? He goes, half an hour. I go, yes. The first 2 minutes are going to look like shit. He goes, what do you mean? I'm going to kick loose, and I'm going to roll back into the ring. I go, the next 28 minutes is going to be magical because he doesn't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what he's going to do. And this is going to be a throwback from days gone by when you're the good guy, I'm the bad guy. We'll see if each other knows what they're about to do. And literally, we went almost the full 30 minutes. And even I got it was still ruled as a draw, and I got 5 more minute chant on top of that. I got even 5 more minutes on top of that. So the promoter was extremely happy when it was all said and done. And he's like going, "How did you pull that?" I said, Ogawa has a judo background. I tried to play to a lot of judo throws that I thought he should have been able to throw me with and things of that nature. And I go, he had to simply survive because I just kept legitimately kicking out of things that he was trying to. Hopefully, the match was going to end there. He's going to pin me there, and I just kept kicking out of hold after hold after hold, and it just made it interesting.
Well, there's a lesson for every budding wrestler out there. Learn how to wrestle and judo and do actual wrestling and fighting, and then professional wrestling should come easy. You just do it 80%.
Really, it should be. I mean, the nice part is, as I always tell a lot of, because I do have more and more amateur wrestlers that are approaching me, and they're like, "Well, how would you do this, or how would you that, or how would you get into the industry?" I go, you have learned. Look at all these mechanics you already know how to do. I go, you already know how to tie up as an amateur wrestler, how to tie up. It's not much different. And so I'll just show them just a couple of simple things. I go, but I said, you can do so many new additional type of things of what you can do if your background is more Greco-Roman-esque. I go, here's a couple classic types of moves that you can show out there. Or, very rarely do you see amateur wrestlers. There always used to be they'll test the strength when they reach up there,
the Greco knuckle,
yes, test the strength. But I always tell people that very rarely do you see any ground wrestling. I go, the unique thing is to simply do some ground wrestling. A great story. Again, I digress one more time. A great story here. I have Mick Foley. Excuse me. At the time, Cactus Jack. All I do is I'm on this card. I'm in Japan. The Kawasaki Deathmatch Tournaments series. I'm there for like 10 days. And literally all these other guys are working like, I think 7 or 8 out of the 10 days. They've got 1 day off. And then we got the big Kawasaki Deathmatch Tournament series. And I'm there the whole time. And I've only got 1 match. That's it. And I'm going to the gym each day. I'm going out and seeing some sights, things of that nature. And on the only day off, Cactus Jack is sitting in the practice room where I'm doing my own workout, stuff like that. He's just watching me, and we've never really interacted with each other. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the very first things he ever said to me is like, he goes, "Dad," he says, "Can you show me some wrestling moves?" I'm thinking to myself, I go, "You're Cactus Jack. You've been wrestling professionally way longer. What world can I even show you?" And he says, he goes, "I can't wrestle." He says, "But I can endure pain." And I'm like to myself, I started watching his matches after that, and by God, the man was right. He can't wrestle to save his soul, but he can tolerate incredible amounts of pain. But even that Kawasaki Deathmatch tournament, he's in his tournament, so he's going to go out there several times. His very first match, he goes out there, was a Thumbtack match. I had never seen a Thumbtack match, so I'm watching it through the curtain, stuff like that, and I watch this promoter or the referee dump out what looks like thumbtacks, but I think it can't be thumbtacks because it's professional wrestling. And their match continues, and there's clotheslines and body slams and the whole 9 yards, and match is done. And Cactus Jack is on his way back in, and I kind of slide back into the locker room. I sit down in my chair, and when he comes in, Cactus Jack always wore shirts and tights of that nature. Well, a couple of the Green Boys, the young Japanese wrestlers, they came out and they pulled the bottom of his shirts out to where all of a sudden you hear tick, 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 because of all of these metal objects falling out the floor, and a couple rolled towards my stool where I was sitting there. I bent over, picked up, and going, "My God, these are real." And so the very first words I ever spoke to Cactus Jack at that time was go, "Hey, Cactus," I go, "How often do you get a tetanus shot?" And he looked at me and goes, "Every year, Dad, every year." I go, it boggled my mind. I just, to see that kind of stuff, but at the same token, I always thought to myself, I hope I never need money bad enough that I'm going to do a thumbtack match or a barbed wire match or explosives, or I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some people like Terry Funk and Cactus Jack. That night, they were involved in the final match of that whole series, and there was barbed wire, and there was explosives, and both guys had to be taken to the hospital after the match was done. They both received, I think, some third-degree burns and things of that nature. And I might go to myself, wow, I hope I never need money that bad to where I think the risk of what they're doing far exceeds what I did as a cage fighter.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Just one thing. I will have to cut in slightly. I've got a lot of table wobble from you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I do it. Okay, I'll try to keep my hands up.
Yeah,
now.
sorry. I just feel like I'm being terribly impolite. But I'm sorry. I bring
No. Just you got to be mine because I'm not a petite type person, so I keep my hands on here, and you see the table go up and down. So sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry about that. Right, I'm actually going to bring something from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Something from November, and apparently, according to this newsletter, Dave Meltzer said that you were potentially in line, according to Dennis Carluzzo, that you were thinking about going to ECW as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion to start a program with Taz. I'd never heard of this before. Was there any truth to this? Because apparently there was a bit of an issue because he wanted you to drop the title to Dory Funk Jr. at last minute and you were unhappy with it.
There was a couple things that came up with ECW because I think you had Paulie was the booker, matchmaker, idea person. So I mean there was I think I was at ECW's very first pay-per-view even. I was up in the what they refer to as the Gorilla Room. I was up there talking with a few different people. I mean, there's I don't know. I mean, it's you've had people that they call themselves like the Suplex Machine. That's what Taz was portraying himself as, the Suplex Machine. Same way as what Brock Lesnar called himself the Suplex Machine. And I kept thinking, well, I mean, it's easy to pull off, say, suplexes when it comes to professional wrestling because you and I were working together on things. But to go out into an actual live combat match, and I always tell people, you could simply look at the UFC archives and you'll see my very, I think it was my very first match ever.
Yeah, UFC 4. I remember 2 German suplexes on that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, against the gentleman's name was Anthony Macias.
Yes.
And I mean, but see, a lot of people won't realize, if you ever go back to look at that match, if I would have gotten off the very first move, it was going to be a belly to belly suplex or suplex, to where he would have hit the front of his head, not the back. And then again, there's a legit where you do belly with belly to belly or belly to back suplex. But in the professional world, they just simply refer to it as the German suplex. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I pulled that off several times and for different organizations for mixed martial arts. I don't even know where to go from here.
Was there any like protracted negotiations with Paul Heyman? Were you going to be brought in to actually have a shoot fight with Taz? Was that ever?
I mean, there were things that were being discussed at the time. Nothing that really came to fruition. There was one point in time, I'm trying to think who was the gentleman that had the NWA belt, but he was the ECW champion at one point. Shane Douglas, and then he threw the NWA belt right in the garbage can.
Yeah.
And again, that was a big show of disrespect, and I think that I think Dennis Carluzzo was trying to line me up with a match with him somewhere along the line, but that wasn't going to take place because I would have dismantled him. Okay, but I wasn't exactly what I call a hired mercenary. Because there's a lot of these guys that they were nervous around me. Because they did not know how to take me. Even when I first was working with Vince McMahon in WWF, I've always, I mean, it might be hard to believe now with you talking to me that I'm actually a very quiet person. I stay pretty much to myself. When I was first signed up with the WWF, I would get to the building early. They wanted you to be there extremely early. So I'd go in and it was I would find out wherever they had their cafeteria area set on up. I'd find myself a place to sit, and then I would have my cell phone and I would have my planner, and then I would be just working on what else is coming up. And that's how I spent my time. And um, you know, Jim Cornette came in one point in time, and he just asked me what I'm doing. I just explained to him, it was like I'm using my time constructively, where a lot of the other guys, I mean, they weren't. But then, maybe they were making enough money, and maybe they thought this money was going to last forever. I mean, I almost hate to say this, but I've made more money. I personally have made more money in professional wrestling than I ever did to climb into a cage. And I'm thinking that's almost not right to be making more money in the world of fantasy as opposed to in the world of reality. But that's what it was. Um, and so I was always using my time productively. And even then, I don't know. I'm digressing again here from the actual original question right there. A lot of the guys were just nervous around me because it just they didn't know how to take me because again, me being quiet, kind of kept to myself. I drove by myself. I stayed by myself, and once after about I think the second experience of staying at the same hotel all the other athletes were staying at, there were too many people hanging around. I mean, people going up and down, banging on doors. You had all types of ring rats and things of that nature that were waiting around in lobbies and they going up down hallways. I'm like, I don't want to be around this element. So from that point on, I found out that I could call in to the travel. I could travel it earlier. So I would actually travel it earlier that day. I might do a speaking engagement. I might go do an amateur wrestling clinic or a seminar or something of that nature. So I'm already making one payday earlier that day. I go and do my professionals match. I make my second payday. And then after the match is done, I might go to a sports bar or something like that and do one more appearance. So in the same 24 hours that's gone, where these guys are making one payday, I'm pulling out 2 and 3 paydays because I kept looking at my 24 hours is gone. I can't get it back. So am I making $5 an hour or am I making $500 an hour? So I mean, I look at that. I was trying to use my time as productively as I possibly could, but I know I didn't really answer your question.
It's fine, but I did get an answer, so so that's fine. I'll ask you this one, but you have declined to answer it once before that I know. And if you don't want to at all, we shall move straight on. An issue between you and Dory Funk, late '97, involving his wife. If you're interested in talking about it, please do. If not, we'll just.
I mean, the interesting part about that was there was really nothing. There was nothing wrong with it. I mean, that was probably one of the most best professional wrestling angles ever.
Oh, really? Because that was promoted as real for goodness knows.
Well, again, it was promoted real, and everyone. Well, it's because I mean, Dory Funk, his wife, and myself, we kept the term was known as kayfabe. Mm-hmm. We kept the kayfabe so well, and it was all the way it was going to be done. It was all kind of like prefabricated up, and even how the match was going to, how it was going to end, and things of that nature. There's even at some parts I didn't even know how it was going to work out. It's kind of going, and I just grabbed myself. I left the building thinking, where am I exactly? Do I go now? No, but it was.
Well,
it was
to explain to sorry to interrupt. Explain to people who don't know what was purported to be a genuine
please.
incident. No, please. No one wants to hear me say it. You tell me.
Well, I mean, okay, and you may have to correct me on a couple parts of this, but I think we were like one of the last matches. The match is done, and as we're going back, there's exchange of words between Dory's wife and myself, and I think she might even threw a drink at me or something like that. But then Dory Funk goes back out to the ring and basically issues a challenge. And the funny thing is, not the funny thing, but the ring crew was already taking apart the ring itself, to where I think one of the ropes are loosened now, part of the canvas has been rolled on up, and we go out there, and then we basically improvise an additional match, and basically that leaves me. I had to, I think, putting Dory down, and I think I wrapped him up into the canvas somehow or something like that. And then basically, as I leave, I just more or less grab my stuff, jump in my vehicle, and I departed. And then at that point, I was kind of going, well, now I need to pull out the cell phone and find out where the heck do I go from that point. It's kind of like I think we pulled off what we were supposed to do, but at the same token, it was like when you can pull off something that is so legit looking that even the talent, the wrestlers buy into it, that says something. So I know we did a great job that night, because there were a lot of wrestlers that bought into it, and that were mad at different people for different reasons.
Did you hear that the police were called by somebody after you left?
No, I mean, they could have been. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, so the report goes, it's either a genuine incident, in which case someone needs to be held accountable for, or it wasn't genuine and Howard Brody was going to get arrested for for wasting police time. So he ended up in some sort of weird pickle over that, apparently.
Oh, well, again, I know it all worked out, because I was speaking to Howard and seeing him later that evening as well. And I just know that it worked out really well.
Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes, I just went along with the program, and it's I don't understand some of the angles that promoters want to do, but that's not for me here to say or like that. It's like going, okay, I did it, and nothing to be really ashamed about. I mean, it was we did our craft well enough to where all these wrestlers bought into it. So that spoke volumes to me.
Very good. That's not an exclusive I've just got out of you, is it? Because I couldn't find any other information on that.
Well, I mean, again, could it be? Honestly, I couldn't tell you that, James. Maybe I do. Again, I always say that no two interviews are ever the same, because it depends on the questions you come up with, but then also sometimes, as when the question's being hit again, maybe it rekindles some other dark space in my brain here.
Yeah,
because I could tell people that I could probably write book after book after book, as long as I have the right people around me talking to me and stuff like that, because I've done so many things for so many decades. I would want some of my high school classmates, for example, to be around me, especially like I had guys that were on the football team that that was my football brotherhood at that point. I had people the wrestling team that again they would come up with great stories, and then there'd be people on the track and field team, because I mean I did 3 sports for all 4 years. The track coach loved me and hated me both, because he simply knew that I only did track as a way to keep running for cardiovascular stuff like that. And he knew that if on a Saturday, for example, if there was a Saturday track meet and there was a Saturday wrestling meet, he was not going to see me at the track meet. So, and then, but he knew that ahead of time because I told myself, I'm taking this for cardiovascular stuff like that. But I mean, I scored points throwing the discus. I scored points throwing the shot put. But then I did ironically, I ran the high and low hurdles. Not exactly gifted with the most of speed, but I was pretty proficient at doing things.
Are we okay for a bit of time? Because I've got quite a few questions. If not, I'll edit a few down.
Keep on a roll there, James.
Thank you very much, then, and I shall do indeed. Then with my next question, that I'm also going to experiment in asking them in slightly silly voices, apparently as well, if that was anything to go by. Your first meeting with Vince McMahon. I actually spoke to a chap called, I don't know if you'll be familiar with him, he's called Carl Willett. He's been wrestling for decades now. And he always used to say he was one of the Quebecers. He's PCO now in Ring of Honor. He said that he had a real intimidation factor talking to Vince McMahon, especially in those early weeks and months that he was around him. I can't imagine that you got the intimidation factor. I really can't imagine that. But do you remember the first meeting you ever had with Vince McMahon and contract negotiations and of the ilk? Did you go to his mansion to talk to him, things like that?
No, I did not go to his mansion, nothing like that. I mean, I think it was flown into. I think his office is located in Stamford, Connecticut. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, you're right.
But I'm trying to think here right now. I think I was brought into WWF first, then WCW. That brought the WWF, kind of basically back to WWF again. I'll just say that I met with Bischoff, WCW, and met with Vince, and I had an attorney friend that basically put together. I mean, they showed me their standard contract there, but I did not want to be on the road exclusively the way that they were looking for. At that time, I believe the average professional wrestler was working like 187 dates a year. And if you're one of their stars, you're on the road even that much more. And I realized that Vince and the industry as a whole, they did not realize how old I was. And I knew that that's going to be something that's going to be held against me, my age. Because they want to invest in people that's going to be around for a number of years. And well, again, I did not look my age, nor did I act my age. But I basically had an attorney friend that kind of took the contract that they offered me. I said, this is what I'd like to get it scaled down to if I could. And so I basically only worked about, I think, 60 dates a year. If memory serves me correct, 60 dates a year. And I had to know about everything well enough ahead of time because the biggest thing was I was non-exclusive. So I could work for anybody, including WCW at that time, because I was still working with Dennis Carluzzo and the whole NWA organization. And I wanted to keep that going because that's the people that put the faith in me in the first place. So I wanted to stay working with the NWA. And I was enjoying going over to Japan, still doing the stuff I was doing over there because I had different organizations that were calling upon me as well. So
I should also, sorry to interrupt you, I should also bring this up. In the 11 months that you wrestled for the WWF, you also fought 8 MMA matches at that same time, and you won 7 and you drew 1 to Pat Miletich. I thought I'd just throw that in there. So, how did your body cope, basically, with winning these fights, as well as all the punishment you're getting from wrestling rings, WWF, and independent?
I once again, I go back to my little portable Bible here, my planner. there, I mean, I was on the road quite a few days out of the month, and there would be certain mornings as I'm waking up, as I'm rubbing the sleep out of my eyes, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, where am I at? What hotel am I in now? What is my function today? Am I a professional wrestler? Am I a cage fighter? Am I going to be speaking to kids? Am I going to do an amateur wrestling clinic? I mean, literally, that was, I would have to look at my planner to simply understand what is my role today, because the variety of things that I was doing. I did not want to put all of my eggs into one basket, because I simply know that if that basket gets upturned, I'm done. And I always want to know that I have something to fall back onto. Again, kind of like what you and I have always spoke about before off this interview, that, I mean, in the back of my mind right now, I'm looking at, I'm still involved. I still do a token professional wrestling match here and there, but I do a lot more speaking engagements, just a ton of seminars. So teaching amateur wrestling, professional wrestling, mixed martial arts. I work with law enforcement, corrections, air marshal, border patrol, military. So I mean, I'll never run out of work. But I always know that I'm 63 now. I simply know that how many more years will I be able to continue to walk on these mats and teach moves without, shoulder problems here, back problems there, knee problems here, I'm working more and more into simply being that motivational speaker, and I want to give but I'll just use my life story and just the different people that I've encountered and who I've helped along the route. I always tell people that as an amateur wrestler, especially as an amateur as a coach, I know I can make you better. I will write you up a program that will be very detailed orientated, and knowing that you will give up on yourself before I'll ever give up on you. But then that's also, a lot of people ask you how have you been so successful? I haven't won everything. I haven't always achieved success on every different front, but the fact is, if I take a loss, get back up, dust myself back on off, try to learn from that loss, and move forward. I even in a lot of these interviews, stuff like that, I try not to bash anybody too badly. But I mean, if I ever really bash somebody, it means like I don't ever plan on ever speaking to that person ever again.
Yeah, they deserve it.
Well, again, but I say it like that because I mean that's the way I feel. There are James. I actually have a category on my cell phone in my database. It's known as turds. You don't want to get into that category, and I do have, I think, 16 or 18 of them in there now.
I hasten to ask, any names that we might recognize on the turd list?
Well, again, but these are people that realistically, the world would be a better place if they didn't even exist anymore. I am a big believer in karma. I do believe that what you give out will return to you somewhere in time. And for some of these people, I just want a front row seat. That's all.
Is there anybody we'd heard of that maybe, or is there anybody you'd like to throw under the bus? You're more than welcome.
Well, no, I'll let be that. Just simply know that if you, it's like I don't like to curse either. So it's like if I start cursing, it means I'm pretty livid. Pretty livid about something. So
we'll move off the turd list then, and okay. I'll give you a few more then. And
you never want to make the turd list.
Okay?
Never want to make the turd list.
Come on, I'd make the lovely list, surely. Yes, you've got good charisma there about you there, James. You do well what you've done in your real estate. You're going to do well on the podcast. You got a good personality, and again, it's not like you're really interviewing me where we're having more of a conversation. Yeah. So that's what you want things to be, so that more things
come out of people.
It's funny actually because because we talked a couple of days ago and we probably spent an hour just talking about like real estate and stuff like that. We found that way more. It's like you said to me because you saw my background and you said, "Oh, I see you're a big wrestling fan." And I don't know. They're just for decoration, really. I mean, I was a huge wrestling fan and everything. Then we ended up just talking about houses for about an hour, which was always a good time.
But that's one thing that I said about like the property I have here. I eventually want to put a little ad on there so I can have like a little studio in there just to have up a few props so that I have, a couple of my props behind me. So it shows amateur wrestling this, mixed martial arts that, and just a couple of aspects here so that people that may only know you as a one-trick pony. I just want people to know that no, I'm not a one-trick pony. I've done multiple things, and I'll continue to do multiple things.
You don't only just canoe soil and mud across the lake to your lakefront property. There are many strings to your bow.
Yeah, so that is not an easy task right there. You don't want to be on my dirt hauling team. I'm literally. I think I fire myself, but I have to rehire myself because no one else is going to work for me.
Same for me. No one's ever going to work for me. I'll tell you, because I pay terrible. I'll give you a few more then, and we shall wrap it up. And I shall thank you for your time. And I always ask this question: Brawl for All. I loved the Brawl for All, but you were the only person to withdraw from the Brawl for All. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions from it, but first I'm going to give you a theory.
Yeah, but I want you to simply know this.
Oh, yes.
I was never supposed to be in the Brawl for All in the first place. Because people brought this up before me. You withdrew. I go, oh, no. Oh, contrary. No, I did not. I didn't withdraw. Okay. When this whole conceptual idea came together, and again, do I really know how it came together? No. But if I was going to guesstimate, I'd say that several of the WWF executives are all probably sitting around partaking of one too many barley pops. And they started talking boisterously as to who did they think was the toughest guy in the locker room. And then they came up with this wacky idea. Well, why don't we do this? And we'll find out who is that person. That's how I think it came about. All I know is that when they made the announcement to the talent, they brought us all into the cafeteria area, and they started talking about this concept of this Brawl for All. 3 1-minute rounds, I think, of boxing gloves with 18-ounce boxing gloves. But they started right at the beginning. The only two people that will not be allowed in this event is Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn. Why hadn't be standing next to one of their executives there? And I'm like, well, I said, since I'm not going to be in this, do I have to sit in here and listen to any more of this? And he's like, no. He said, you go. So I left. So this event goes on for a couple weeks, and I'm in the locker room. I'm just basically waiting around to see if I will perform tonight or not, because you may be on that list performing tonight, but maybe somebody's promo went too long, someone's match went too long. There's certain, every professional wrestling show, it's leading up to a monthly pay-per-view. That's how they're going to all cash in. These are free TV shows, but they're going to cash in really when it comes to these monthly pay-per-views. So you got half a dozen different storylines that are taking place. These storylines must continue through, because if one guy gets hurt, we got to have at least all the other storylines keep going forward, because we still have the pay-per-view that's going forward. And like I said, people do get hurt. And so as I'm waiting there to see if I want to be on tonight's match, one of the road agents comes up to me and says, hey, Dan, how would you like to be in tonight's Brawl for All? So how much notice did I have? Oh, a few hours. And I just said, against who and how much? They gave me a name. They gave me a price tag. I go, done. But then I said, I don't want to wear the 18-ounce boxing gloves. And I go, you can't go out there bare knuckle. I said, I will never throw a single punch. I will show you what a real wrestler can do without ever throwing a single punch. And then that's one of those things that if you could ever go back in time and do over, I would have went out there. I would have had the gloves taken off of me at that point in time, and I would have done it just my own way. So, but as it was, I mean, I took the Godfather down multiple times, clinched and stuff like that. He was unable to really do anything, but to me, it was kind of a lackluster of a match, though, too. But the whole concept of doing something real like this on a professional show, to where now they're not seeing all these big high spots, they're not seeing these leaps and slams, and it was all supposed to help promote to the incoming of Dr. Death Steve Williams.
It was, and actually, I was going to bring up my theory now. So you were in the you were in the last 16. That was your the first round, basically. But if you had won, and I don't see any reason you wouldn't have won your quarterfinal matchup, you would have gone against Dr. Death Steve Williams if he'd won his quarterfinal matchup. That's why I had assumed you were maybe told to withdraw because they wanted Steve Williams to win. Is that not true?
No, none of that was true. It was just basically as soon as my match was done, and I walked through the curtain, and then the same road agent that said I was in just came back up to me and goes, "Okay, you're back out now." I was like, I made a payday for the night. I mean, you got to realize I made my normal payday because I'm there. Now I get this extra payday because I jumped at this brawl for all, and now I'm out again. Now, so again, my speculation was, okay, they were around drinking again, some of their barley pops. And they're like going, well, I think so-and-so might be able to take Dan Severn.
Well,
I was going to say, again, had it been, because the Brawl for All, they allowed you to do whatever you wanted to do. I'm not going to win a contest of just fisticuffs. I'm not going to win a boxing contest because I'm not a boxer. But as long as you allow me to do anything and everything, I'm okay. You, as a boxer, you have to be within arm's reach in order to punch me. If you're kickboxing, legs range, a kick, knee, elbow, whatever. I mean, I was always good through my no-holds-barred career, staying just outside of range because I simply knew that there's that point where you're close enough to where now who's going to commit first? You look at it, again, I always refer to it as the setup. You're trying to set your opponent up. You try to distract them and to do things, because there were certain things I would do upstairs. There are certain things I would do downstairs, or set them up for one or the other. Like I'm about to shoot on in, and as they start to sprawl back, come up with an uppercut or something like that. I mean, I got better as time went on. But I always tell people that for doing all the matches that I did, I want them to understand, here's the real kicker. The fact is, UFC number 4, I only trained for 5 days, an hour and a half a day at Al Snow's Body Slammers Gym in Lima, Ohio. I never trained a single strike. I never trained a single submission. It was basically Al Snow and 2 other professional wrestling trainees, and they had one old pair of boxing gloves that they wore, and I was bare knuckled. They're like, "Oh, Dad, don't punch us." I go, "I'll never punch you. I'll parry," stuff like this. It's just so I get the clinches that I could use whatever I wanted to do. And so I always tell people, when I showed up to UFC number 4, and they're filling out the paperwork because they're getting your height, your weight, all this kind of stuff. And then this is the first time ever being asked the question, "So what is your martial art?" I'd never been asked that question before. I paused for a moment, and then I simply looked at the person, and I simply said, "I'm an American wrestler." Well, they had never heard that response before. So then they kind of looked to the left, they looked to the right, they kind of leaned down in, they're like going, "What exactly does that do?" And then I kind of mimicked them. I look left and right, and I lean down in and go, "You might want to watch. I'm simply making this up as I go." and they started laughing like that. They thought this like one of these candid camera type of moments. And I'm making, no, I go, "Seriously?" And I go, "I only trained for 5 days, hour and a half a day. Here I am."
Do you know, I actually skipped a question about Al Snow in UFC 4, but I'll ask it now because
Go ahead.
I like the question. Is in UFC 4 you make it to the finals before something like 15 minutes 36
I know the question right now.
No,
Go ahead.
I've got a better one. Al Snow obviously gave you really good advice in the 2 first fights. Do you blame Al Snow for cornering you and giving you bad advice for the final for why you lost to Hoist Gracie?
No, none whatsoever. None whatsoever. Yeah, it's because there was, Al Snow was basically there for encouragement in my corner, but what was he going to tell me what to do? He wasn't going to tell me what to do. All it was for just encouragement. So, like I said, I always tell people, you find another person, either living or deceased, that can come close to any of my claims. To have, when you look at this, there's only 4 people in the world that have over 100 cage fights. I'm one of the 4. There's only 3 that have over 100 victories. I'm one of the 3. Now the ironic part is, I faced the other 3, I defeated the other 3, and the closest one I ever, close one to my age, I think was like 12 years my junior. So I mean, literally. You're looking at that somebody's father, without training, went out there and kicked your butt. So
you have to give us the names. People, you have to give us the names, though.
The number 1 leader was a gentleman by the name of Travis Fulton, Shannon Cannon Rich, Gumby, what is Gumby's real name? Oh boy, I'm almost embarrassed. I just drew a blank right now on the.
I'll tell you what. I'll Google it while you.
Okay, well, I'm flapping my app here. Yeah, no, it was again the fact that I mean, 100 matches. That's a lot of matches. We got the four people. It says only 4 people ever they have achieved over 4 matches. The tragic part is Travis Fulton. He basically he's now departed. He's gone. Kind of really fell into some hard times and ended up committing suicide.
There's Jeremy Horn.
Jeremy Horn, yes, yeah. I see. He was known as Gumby. There's a very classic match right there with where. A promoter was talking to me, and he's like, "Going, Danny goes, I had several promoters. I mean, they liked me, and they knew I was starting to get up there and years and stuff like that. And they're like, "Oh, Dan, don't want to see you get hurt." And again, which I appreciate that. And the promoter's name was Monty Cox. He goes, Danny goes, I'd love to put you on this card. He goes, I got nobody. He goes, the most popular person I have in the area here is a young fighter by the name of Jeremy Horn. I go, well, Monty, give me Jeremy Horn. I go, and I'll give you back a star. He goes, well, what do you mean? I go, just give me Jeremy Horn. And again, that's where Jeremy Horn, as I stated earlier, I suck with my stand-up things. Well, Jeremy Horn sucks worse than I do when it comes to stand-up. So I basically knocked him down a couple of times. Again, not hard, because I'm not trying to. Well, as silly as this sounds, I'm trying to find the nicest way possible to defeat you in a not so nice contest. And there's other guys that I'm going against that I'm trying not to. I don't want to see them get hurt because they're only making a couple $100 or maybe $1,000 or something like this. I mean, they're not making much money today. They got to go back to work tomorrow. Can't go back to work if you got your eye hanging out of socket or your arms all twisted around or something like that. Because you got to realize you could do whatever you wanted to do back then. There was a way. I mean, you couldn't bite and you couldn't eye gouge in the original no holds barred segment there. So Jeremy Horn, I knocked him down a couple of times, and so I knocked him down yet again. I kept thinking, well, maybe I'll showboat just a little bit. So I backed up a little bit, and I'm like, come on, come back up. And he shakes and said, no, come on down. And I'm like, okay. I jumped up into the air, and literally As I'm coming down, his eyes got big as saucers. I'm thinking to myself, "You invited me. Here I come." But as I came down, I was already a professional wrestler. I basically, as I'm going down, I turned myself sideways to where I basically did, I did like a crossbody splash. So I landed on my hands and my forearms and my knees to where I didn't hurt him at all. Yeah, but I guarantee he probably had to change his trunks.
Yoel Romero style for I believe he had to change his trunks in one match as well, but I don't think anyone did anything to him. I think he might have just got a bit excited. I hate to say my namesake as well, Romero.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh dear.
Any relation?
Well, I might scrub that one actually. You've compared me to Elton John, and I've compared myself to Yoel Romero, the man who shits his pants. So I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it for celebrities.
Better save those trunks. You never know; they might be valuable one day.
There's some pervert out there who'll buy them, put them in a Japanese vending machine. Someone will have them sooner or later. I'll tell you what. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh no! Carry on, please.
All I was gonna say is that they'll take them home, toast them into the microwave for 30 seconds. Like, oh, he just took them off. Yeah.
It'll crust up after a certain while. They'll know you've put it in the microwave though. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a couple more, and then, I always say, I'll give you a couple more, then I'll stop. But there's always more questions coming, but I promise I will. When we first spoke a couple of years ago, and I think I actually mentioned you by name in the book, as you were probably like the most generous with your time. And when I say the book, I will show this to the main camera. My first one, Owen Hart, King of Pranks. I asked you for some background. You were really great with your time and everything. And
how many pages is that book? Because that's a pretty good sized book right there. How many pages is that?
Hang on, I'll tell you. 429.
Wow, very very good.
Yeah. Some say I just didn't know when to stop writing, but and I didn't edit anything out. But it was my book and I self-published and everything.
Okay, can just ask you another question? Were you able to interview a number of the Hart family? Family members.
I reached out to Martha. I reached out to Brett. I reached out to Bruce. No one replied to Diana. I reached out to. No one replied to me. Quite a few wrestlers replied to me and gave me anecdotes. But no, sadly, I wrote to Martha Hart, Owen's widow, last year, and she finally wrote back to me and said, "Oh, I'll read it and get back to it," and then she never did. So. It's just one of those things. I'm not going to push the issue. So
sure, no, I get it. Okay.
But so one of the things that you were really good with telling me the backstory to, and it's one of those other Wrestling Observer in a newsletter things that what they have written was not the reality of the situation, and it's not famous because it's a Vince Russo brain fart where there's no real feud going on. You get sent out with Owen Hart, and within about 2.5 minutes. Owen does the recreation of the Steve Austin inverted pile driver that nearly paralysed him and it impacted on his spine, causing him severe neck injuries. And he does the same thing to you, and it was reported that it all went absolutely fine. And when I asked you about it, you said no, it didn't. So if you could tell us the story.
Yeah, no, that did not go fine at all. I mean, it was again, it was supposed to be a recreation of what happened with Stone Cold Steve Austin as well. I mean, that was already predetermined, and that there'd be an injury angle, and then I would be taken out of the ring on a backboard, by EMTs. So that was already put into place. But the reality was, he did drop me right on my head. Ironically, Stone Cold Steve Austin called me up. I'll say somewhere in the last, 10, 12 months ago, he called me up out of the blue, my cell phone. And he goes, Dan, it was a Stone Cold Steve Austin here. He says, I know that we didn't talk much when we were both working for Vince. And he said, you had your thing to do. I had my thing to do. He said, a friend of mine just showed me a video just recently. And he goes, I had to give you a phone call. He said, Owen Hart, well, I mean, he basically said Owen Hart fucked up. He goes, he literally dropped you on your head. He should not sit down on his butt. He should drop down to his knees. And I go, yeah, he did. He did incorrectly. He goes, are you okay? I go, I come up with a little comical line. I go, mentally or physically? And he got kind of a kick out of my one line. I said, honestly, Steve, I hit the top of my head and I had a bolt of lightning run down my spine and run down my leg. I said, it was all part of the angle. As I laid there, I didn't try to bring any attention to myself, but as I laid there, I'm making certain that my hands are still moving and that I could still move my toes. And even at one point, because I think, I don't know if Owen realized at that point in time that he screwed up or he hurt me, and he knelt down because he's still trying to keep in match performance mode. So he kind of whispers, he goes, he reaches out, grabs my hand, he goes, if you're okay, squeeze my hand. I did not squeeze his hand. And the match went on to do is like, okay, paramedics are called in, I'm taken off on the backboard, neck brace, backboard. They carry me back. As soon as they get me back past the curtain, I get off the backboard. And that's when, Owen Hart comes up to me and he's like, question me. He goes, why did you squeeze my hand? But that's when I basically went after Owen. I mean, not that I was going to beat him up right then and there, but I went after him and I'm thumping him on the chest, the old thumping here. And I go, why did you drop me on my head for real? I said, you are a trained professional. I go, you're Owen Hart. I go, you're part of the Hart legacy. I said, if anyone should know how to do something correctly, you and the lineage that you came with it. I was livid. And I go, if I should ever have you in the ring again, I said, I will not take care of you whatsoever. I was pissed because literally I know I dodged the bullet. It was sad to see what happened, to what was Owen's demise, with the blue blazer gimmick and stuff like that. But I tell people all the time there, James, that I've been hurt far worse in my professional wrestling career than I have been in all my cage fights. And I go, that's wrong. And but that's also because who are they being trained by? Are they continuing their training? And most of these guys, because they get to the top, they think that they can just sit around and smoke cigars and drink shots and not have to really train. No, you're only as good as your last training session. And that's where I'm a big proponent that if I ran that company, I don't care if you're a superstar or not, you better have your ass in there working out a minimum of once or twice a week in the ring stuff. If your performance also includes you having to show up in a certain physical type of shape, well, you better spend a little bit more time in the gym on, whatever cardiovascular machines, bench presses and dumbbells and the whole 9 yards. But, no one wants to buy a ticket to see a bunch of chubby men out there running around.
Just one thing on the pile driver again is, at the time when I asked you this a couple of years ago, you attributed it to a couple of different things why it went wrong. One of them was maybe there's some baby oil on the chest.
Well,
maybe
in Owen Hart's defense, Owen Hart always tended to put like a little bit of baby oil on his arms and on his chest because it made his muscles glisten when he went out there. So maybe it was the application of that, or maybe the fact that I'm kind of deceptive on my weight. I weigh more than what I look. I'm a little bit more denser.
Big bone.
But it could be a combination of those things. But at the same token, if again he's got me up, he should have been dropping down to his knees and not sitting on his butt. Now there are some guys that pull off sitting on their butt, but they've got gigantic thighs on them. They got big butts, they got big thighs on them. They can pull that off, and you're going to be safe. That was not the case with Owen. Like I said, I was very livid with him. At that time. As the cliche goes, time does heal all wounds. I wish he was alive today. We'd probably have a good laugh about it, but that's not the case.
No, it's not the case. And it was a sort of sad state of affairs that the 2 times something went wrong in the ring, it was the exact same move that he knew he couldn't have done the first time. So it always strikes me as odd that he'd attempt it a second time with someone even bigger the second time, which always struck me as a bit odd. I will ask a couple of... well, I'll ask you this one thing. So obviously the main match for you was going to be against Ken Shamrock. That seems to be where it was going in the first few months you were in the WWF. There was talk about you versus Ken in the King of the Ring finals, and that never happened. And everyone always wanted to book the trilogy, and it never happened, except it did. You and Ken wrestled one singles match on Raw, and it went 1 minute. And my point is for every single thing that Vince Russo did right with the Attitude Era, you know, concentrating on The Rock and Steve Austin and some of the outlandish things that drew in ratings, there were some real huge missed opportunities and some like really bad storytelling at the same time. I looked at your face and you don't even remember this so-called trilogy wrestling match with Ken.
No, so, I don't.
Well, the actual question I was going to ask is, Vince Russo, how much time did you spend with him?
None.
Absolutely none.
None.
What did you make of him?
Part of I think in some aspects, I did not know how much control I would have over my character. I mean, when I'll say yes and no on that one, because when a couple of the members of the creative team came up to me and they pitched me some new ideas, Dan, we want you to put 666 across your forehead, mark of the beast. We're going to make you an Undertaker disciple, things of nature. And as they're starting to pitch this idea there to me, I put my hand up like a little T there, and I'm like going, time out, guys, not going to happen. I live in small town USA. I'm not going to have any repercussion against my family, against me, against my businesses. I said, because you don't know how many people buy into this crap. I mean, I say it like that, but it's the truth. There are a lot of people, James, before I ever jumped into professional wrestling, I went to several professional wrestling shows to watch both the show, but I actually got more intrigued with watching the audience. Professional wrestling preys upon a lot of special needs people. I don't know if you do this or not, but okay, they're kind. I mean, again, Vince and his company, they're kind that they do all these kinds of things with kids with special needs, things of that nature. But the same token, they also prey upon these kids, because the reality is these kids don't know what is real and what's not. And whether they be a kid or they're a full-grown adult at this point in time, because they're that age. I was really intrigued with watching it. I was like, oh, wow, this is one of the strangest industries I've ever seen. And I mean, again, that's where I could look at different types of things. I try to make sense out of it. There's certain things I could never make sense out of. And, you know, Vince Russo had some missed opportunities, especially with someone like a Ken Shamrock and myself. We were both there. We were both there as professional wrestlers. We're both there for the right reasons. You know, my contract didn't go quite as long because, you know, I got the creative team saying that, you know, they want to take me this new direction with this Mark of the Beast. And then I told them no. And then they're like, going, well, you know, Dan, we can start using you poorly. I go, what do you mean by that? I go, we could have you start losing matches. I go, oh, you can ask me, but where on this contract states that I have to lose to anybody? I said, that's what I basically asked. That's why I bowed my back. And I'm going, who do you have in that locker room that's going to stop me?
Who?
So I had to play trump card at that point in time. But the reality was,
who was the official who said that to you? Because I've heard you say that before. But I mean, I'll give you. There was Bruce Pritchard, Vince Russo, Ed Ferrara, who was the other writer.
And honestly, I couldn't even tell you right offhand. It just, I could tell you about the incidents. I could tell you what went down with the incident. But do I remember who said that to me? I could not tell you that.
No. Okay.
They're just too much of life has gone on to where it's like, as they say before, I could write a couple more books easily, just talking about Dad Severn high school years, Dad Severn the college years, Dad Severn this, Dad Severn that, and then like it's kind of going. It just, I'm just glad I kept journals to a certain extent, because there's stuff that I'll thumb through a journal and I go, holy moly, that's a phenomenal story in itself right there.
I will. Do you know what? You've been so unbelievably kind with your time and everything. I will wrap it up with what I wrap it up with every single show. And I call it the firing line. I'm going to fire some names at you. If you have a story about them, fantastic. Any opinions on them, fantastic. If you don't, we'll move on to the next one. Just a bunch of names. And these are all going to be from the WWF. I mean, originally I had like Takada and King Kong Bundy and Jim Neidhart, people you wrestled on the Indies and in Japan, but I've focused on WWF only. And the first people I'm going to give you actually are the Headbangers.
Headbangers? Well, I'll say, I don't know. Am I supposed to give like a one?
No, you don't have to say anything. If you've got a story,
okay,
got a story.
Headbangers, I had a lot of fun there. Well, because they were like the first kind of like tag team I had to dismantle, but they were great. They were great. They had a good attitude about it. Matter of fact, I just saw them recently, probably within the last, I'll say, 6 months, between 4 and 6 months ago. Saw them at one of these conventions. And again, they were still great with me again. So it's good. I've got nothing bad to say. They were good. They're involved in professional wrestling for probably all the right reasons. What professional wrestling is all about. They had something unique that they brought to it, and they were a tag team.
The Rock.
The Rock. Well, I don't know. See, I'm not that good about putting my one eyebrow up. Can you? What the beast is cooking?
I can. I'll show you. Look at that.
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
good stuff.
Well, I mean, The Rock. What is he? Is he second or third generation professional wrestler? I think he's got to be at least second.
Third.
So I mean, he had a lot of people that he could call upon that could help. But I mean, you got to look at. He's got a great deal of charisma himself. He's got the athletic attributes to go with it. He was I think a Florida State football player. And look how he has transformed from being a professional wrestler to being an actor. I mean, he's killing it. I think he's the number one most active person in the film industry, and I think he's even started his own little branch of film.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's killing it. But then you also look at Dave Bautista. He's killing it there as well. And you've got several other people that have jumped into professional wrestling, because what is professional wrestling? Taking on a role, taking on a character. So I think there's a lot of professional wrestlers that would do very well in professional wrestling.
And also, I have to correct.
Excuse me, in acting. Sorry.
I have to correct. It's Miami State, and all that and more is in my other book that I wrote about The Rock. And I am never ever.
I like how you so subtly put that little so subtly there.
Listen, I'm a salesman first. What can I say?
Well, you should have told me there. If you'd let me know, I would have said, hey, by the way there, James, didn't you write a book about The Rock? How long ago did you write that book about The Rock?
Yes, I did, actually. It came out in November 2020. It's got pretty good reviews on Amazon, I'll have you know. And I'm never writing another book in my life ever again. It was way too much work. I'll give you the next one, Triple H.
Triple H? Never really had any interaction with Triple H. So, but I mean, from an outsider's perspective, I'll say that, you got to look at it a couple different ways. When he was just in the dating stages, I mean, I'm gonna say you better watch how he steps on that line. If he might step over the line or something like that, because you're dealing with daddy's daughter, and daddy can make you or break you at that point in time. So again, now you got to look at it. Now it's
well,
Daddy, he's in the family.
Daddy has broken him. He's no longer head of NXT. I know that. If you don't really have any stories, don't worry. I'll just move on to the next one. Bruce Pritchard.
Yep. No, got no stories again.
Okay. Jeff Jarrett. You did wrestle Jeff Jarrett.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Again, do I really remember? Oh, no, I think he smashed it. Yeah, he hit me with the old guitar. I think that's what he hit me with the guitar at some point in time. Again, that was
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what really to say. That was part of I think early on in the conversation, you were talking about Jeff Jarrett, and we were talking about one of the reasons the NWA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I would go back to the NWA belt. I mean, realistically, I am still the NWA champion. I have never dropped the strap to anybody. Okay. There was Jeff Jarrett's father. I'm trying to think. Well, at the time, they were running these Wednesday night pay-per-views. Mm-hmm. I used to keep my schedule right up on my webpage. They had lackluster sales coming up for their pay-per-views, and all of a sudden they're just like going right out of the blocks. They were doing an NWA title belt defense without ever consulting with me, the guy who was holding the belt. And I've had on my plan, I should not my plan, but on my website, on the same night that they want me to be on this NWA pay-per-view, I am going to be in either Texas or somewhere in a cage in an actual real match. And they're trying to pressure me to be there. I'm like, dudes, I've got a contract here. I got to fulfill my obligations here. And literally, they end up stripping me of the belt.
Really?
And yes. So did I ever lose that title? No. I was stripped of that title. And even then, one of those other moments that if I could go back in time, I should have simply said, sure, James, you can strip me of the title. Send whoever wants to take the title off me to me. We'll see we'll see who remains the champion.
I suppose you should have edited the intro then. So it should be you're currently something like 6,000 days and counting NWA Heavyweight World Champion, and therefore the greatest of all time.
Well, it's ironic though that you're bringing this up because the organization NWA has changed hands a couple of times, and I just had a promoter contact me last night and said you should contact the new ownership,
Billy Corgan.
Yeah, Billy Corgan. See, but I don't have a contact for Billy Corgan, but I know that it'd take me about probably maybe an hour. I could probably hit a number of my professional people contacts and I'd have Billy's, but they're like, you got a great storyline. They're like going, you never lost a belt. It was stripped off of you. You're still the rightful champion. And they go, Billy doesn't have no idea about this, but he was trying to say who their current champion, who the NWA's current champion is. Do you know who that is?
It was Nick Aldis. I believe it's now someone called Trevor Murdoch.
Yes. Okay. How old is Trevor Murdoch?
I've never sent him a birthday card.Maybe late 30s or 40s, something around there.
Okay. Well, I guess I saw a picture. It was sent to me. He looked like he's a lot older than that.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe a harder lifestyle.
Yeah, a tough paper.
Well, again, but that's where, again, the gentleman that said, he said you should contact Billy Corgan and just say, hey, do an agenda with him because you got a perfect little angle that you can run, that you never lost a strap legitimately. It was just super stripped from you.
It's not a bad idea. Ricky Morton was on their show, wrestling singles matches recently as well. So they're happy to have you on. I'm sure. Get on it. I'll give you maybe 3 or 4 more. Okay. You've mentioned Mick Foley already. I'll bring up the Undertaker.
Well, the only story I have for Undertaker would be sitting backstage. There'd be like a couple different TV monitors so he could actually watch the shows. I just remember distinctly just him and I just sitting there just watching just the matches as they're taking place. That's really about it. I mean, I really never had no real interaction because he was doing his thing and I'm doing mine. But I think we're like the only 2 guys that were just sitting back there at the time.
Sable.
No real interaction with her either.
Goldust?
Well, I mean, the only I'll just simply say a very interesting choice of character, professional wrestler. I guess that would be the way I would kind of go there. Going, huh. I'm not certain if I would go, and I'm not certain if I would go down that road. But you know, if you got that mask, the hood, the whole 9 yards, and no one knew who you were, well, if much enough money, you know.
Well, he's committed. I mean, he was definitely committed with that. Big Boss Man.
I enjoyed actually. I've been on a couple of shows with the Big Boss Man. And actually, I enjoyed speaking with him. I don't know what other stories to talk about there.
No, okay, then I'll give you one more. You did fight him. You never wrestled him, but he was a wrestler, so I'll bring it up. Tank Abbott was the persona of the barroom brawler a bit of an act, and he was actually had a bit more going on than he wanted you to believe.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I think he actually has a degree from Stanford University, so you can't exactly be a mental midget and get a degree from Stanford University. Ironically, I mean, I'm here in Howell, Michigan right now, but I was at his home last year out in the Scottsdale, Arizona. He basically left the state of California and now resides in Arizona. A lot of it just for the political and or taxation problems that the state of California, which we could have easily done a whole episode there about politics, politicians, and and how most of them should be at the bottom of the ocean. But he has a home there in the Scottsdale area, and I have to do an interview with him. I mean, obviously, I did fight him once in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Our paths across a couple of times at a couple of these conventions. He's had a lung transplant, not a liver transplant. And I think has lost well over 100 pounds easily. I'll just say that at the interview we were doing at his home, he very, very, very cocky, very arrogant. And there's a couple times that he was walking where our chairs are sitting. There's just a little bit of a walkway here past this pool. A couple times he's walking past. I just wanted to pick up my foot and just push it right out of the pool and go, "Hey, your ego's getting a little bit too swelled up. Maybe we better cool that ego down here a little bit."
Did he, when you were fighting, I can't remember what UFC, I didn't write it down, but when you knew you were facing him, was there any way like he could needle you before the match to try and get in your head, or vice versa?
Well, okay. I mean, I do. Well, I mean, when I did fight Tank, it was in the I think the Ultimate. So it was the 8-man tournament format.
Right. So it wasn't a super fight then. So yeah, you didn't know you were
correct.
facing him.
So
right.
there was really no time to think about the match. I mean, you simply, that's the hardest part. When you go to the tournament format, you may not know who any of these other people. I mean, that's where, to your viewing audience right now, they have the beauty of a computer. They've got the beauty of a cell phone that now they can Google anybody, anything. Back when the UFC was first really starting out, there was no footage. I could Google your name to find out who you were, what your background was. There video clips. I mean, now you can find out so much information about an individual. It's unbelievable. And also all types of things of how you can train, how to train to do this, how to train to do that. I mean, it's I got people that are like handymen that they just Google all stuff about how to fix this, how to fix that. Same way when it comes to find out information. It's phenomenal what you can find out now. But like I said, back during that time period, you were just simply flying by the seat of your pants. So in tournament format, you just had to look at try to make as quick a work of each match, and so you could rest and not take any type of injury. Try not to break your hand. Try not to take any cuts or laceration, get your nose broken, so that you can go to the next match. And very few people have been able to really win these tournaments. When it was the tournament format. And I'm the only Triple Crown champion in the UFC's no holds barred era. So to have won one of their normal 8-man tournaments to win their basically kind of their Rose Bowl type thing when they brought back the Ultimate when they had champions of champions, and then also the a Super Bowl. So there's 3 different categories.
Do you know, I believe you were I can't remember which number of Hall of Fame you went in, but you went in with Ken Shamrock, didn't you? Were you like second inductee?
Oh, no, I was the third inductee. I think they threw Hoist in first, then they threw it Ken, and then I think I was the third.
Do you know if...
but I always like to point out is that out of all the various UFC Hall of Famers, especially out of the first 3, only one of us has never tested positive for chemicals.
Damn straight. You know, if and I would love to have you back on do an MMA version of this where I just ask you all the MMA questions, because I would, not that I haven't talked your ears off on this podcast for over 2 hours now, and I thank you so much for spending time. On the MMA one, I would talk your mustache off. With questions about UFC and Japan and everything like that. I mean, I want to know like why you've never been to Pancrase. I want to know everything about Ken Shamrock and just everything. I could bore you to tears with all the questions, and I would thoroughly enjoy it. If
we put it out there to where even open up to some of the fans that watch your podcast, if they've got questions about the mixed martial arts, the whole bar career, let them send you in questions there as well, because maybe they'll come up with one that you might not have thought of, and think, oh, here's a new one here as well. Because I mean, you've done a good job in terms of you've asked me some different questions, and then you've asked me some same questions but in a different way. That gets a little bit different response. So I mean, I enjoy the different question periods as well.
And I've enjoyed thoroughly talking to you. I will. Before I cut you off, I must ask for some plugs. What are you currently plugging? And the more evergreen stuff rather than like appearances tomorrow, because it might take a bit to get this on.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm basically, if anyone wants to get in contact with me, simply just go to, I have a website, dansevern.com. Severn is spelled Severn, dansevern.com. All my social media contact is there. Email address is what I operate off of the most. I mean, but it does have all my Facebook pages, things of that nature. I'm just better at responding to people via email as opposed to Facebook people. I mean, it's like all kinds of people are like, bet you so-and-so 20 years ago or something like that. It's like, am I going to remember that? No. Unless you're like a cyclop or something like that. I mean, I'll remember that one, but, just normal people, no.
No, you were very polite to me. You said, "Do you remember when we spoke 2 years ago?" And you looked and went, "Yeah, why not?" You were very polite.
I'm a big believer of the golden rule. The golden rule is basically try to treat everybody else the same way you want to be treated, no better, no worse. But that's something that's lost today, especially when. Let's just talk about media right now, especially with all the politics stuff like that that's happening here inside the United States. There was a point in time when if you made a statement, you better know what you're talking about. Because if it's an incorrect statement, now you are held liable for your comments. And I guess while Obama was in office, I think some kind of new laws or ruling came down to where now basically anybody could say anything, slander you in just so many different ways, make up fictitious stories, and people get away with it. To where there would have been your newspaper, your radio station, that TV station, if they said something like that, they would have to did a retraction and apologize. Otherwise, they would be hit for multiple millions of dollars of slander or something like that. And now today it's like going, you can just basically, I mean, you got all kinds of turds that can say whatever they want to say, and there's no repercussion to them.
Yes, it's also known as the YouTube comments section that I find very much so.
YouTube's comment. Okay.
Oh my God, I tell you, so many people get blocked on that. It's unbelievable. And I'll also sum it up in this way. And I think David Cameron, ex-Prime Minister David Cameron, once said, "Too many tweets might make a twat." And And I think that's a good way of summing it up there. I'll tell you what.
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much, Beast, for joining me. I shall sign off now on the right camera. Thank you also for joining us, and we hope to catch you next week. Thank you very much. See you then.